Hey, Elias, welcome to the show. NDI November 2025, our sixth annual show. Today's show, we're really excited. Actually, today's lineup, because today's lineup is going to include Elias, then we're going to have a dealer case study with Key Code, and then we're going to have Bird Dog. So we're giving you a lot more content today. Elias is a founder of Tractus Events, but I like to think of him as one of the great NDI problem solver tinkerers. One of the things you've heard me in a lot of my discussions with during NDI November is how responsive the folks at NDI are to the community itself, not only letting them work on SDKs, but actually hearing what people need and handing off SDKs so they can do stuff. And one of the guys who's been really moving the needle and creating a lot of cool stuff is Elias. So Elias, why don't you tell us about what you do and what Tractus is, and then we can go into some of the NDI secret sauce special stuff that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go. Oh, it's so good to be here. NDI November. I am absolutely jazzed. So, my name's Elias Puurenen. If you don't know me, I started an event company about, man, how many years has it been? 5, 6 now? Used to do event apps, but now we do full service production. And of course, as part of that work, producing our own events and producing events for clients, I'm also a trained computer programmer, went to University of Waterloo for computer science. So I'm in this weird area where I'm do production, but I also make the tools that help us do our productions, help us pull off our productions. Um,
And
and
Elias, if I could
I
jump
got,
in,
yeah,
you make those tools
yeah,
because you've run into real world issues that had to be solved.
yeah, exactly. Actually, the reason I got into NDI in the first place is a true story. I had just a generic HX camera that I pulled off of that I got off Amazon. And it was being a little bit janky in OBS. And I saw that there was an SDK and I said, you know what? Let's code against the SDK. Let's see if I can get my hands dirty here and figure out why this camera's being a little bit uncooperative. And one thing led to another, and here we are. Apparently, we're making lots and lots of tools like Multiview and virtual PTZ. We can go into plenty of detail on all those.
Cool.
But yeah,
So
yeah.
one of the things I want to say is we're not going to go into detail. We're going to do some product demos. But before we get
Mm-hmm.
into those product demos, can you share some of the bigger events you've done and how NDI helped you through those events?
Absolutely. So this year we got the chance to solo produce, 100% produce in-house, a major conference for a client of ours, 3-day trade show plus multi-breakout room symposium. And the previous years we had done all baseband and we had outside third-party AV companies come in. But this year, 2025, we really wanted to do it right. We wanted to do it fully NDI, end to end, no baseband anywhere, except for maybe, final mile runs
Yep.
from a converter over to screens, right? And we did just that. We managed to do 2 breakout rooms, one room that was large room, split it up into 2 breakout rooms, 10, 15 minutes between sessions. It was perfect. We were able to do that. And I'm talking not just cameras. I'm talking we were powering iMag, the screens on either side of the room. We were powering the downstage monitors. We were sending return feeds to remote presenters. We were bringing them in as well. We were NDI all the way,
And it
our
was a
entire
true
signal chain.
hybrid event because you had remote participants, you had remote viewers, did you have remote participants in the conference itself too, interact. So that to me is right there, your badge of honor here, because I think the hardest thing to do is a live hybrid event with multiple remote viewers and remote participants. So remember, think about this, folks. You got people in a room or multiple rooms. You've got people who are watching it all over the world. Then you're bringing in presenters or people to participate in webinars or on discussion groups. And you've got to manage all that kind of stuff. So it's highly, highly stressful. And I think one of the cool things about NDI and some of the tools that Elias has put out is you made it a lot easier. And I think that's one of the things that I think we should take away from NDI. We created a technology that's really gotten out there. It's established. And now I think we're in phase 2 of NDI, which is we've got the adoption of technology. How do we make it easier? How do we make it solve more problems so that we can even expand what we're doing in ways that we didn't even think were possible 2 or 3 years ago?
Let me build on that one because I was part of another event a while ago. It was a 100% baseband event. They wanted to do it that way. Fine, I was brought in to do the streaming for that. And I remember one of the issues they had was getting a multi-view, a production multi-view up to the producer booth. And I remember that was a full 1 hour discussion and everybody running SDI cables and figuring out how are we going to get the signal. And I thought, if we were using NDI for this one, if we were using AV over IP, this would be a non-issue. We would just
any room with a network
run
jack,
an Ethernet
right?
over there.
Any room with a network jack could be where you stuck that guy.
Exactly, exactly. We get the multi-view. It's a 5-minute discussion. We're done.
So
we'll probably spend more time fiddling with the layout.
You went and looked and said, does anyone have a multi-viewer out there? Your answer was, not that's going to do the job for me. So what'd you do?
So I built a multi-view. I built a multi-view. In fact, there it is. That was, we were using multi-view for NDI to power downstage monitor for that conference I was talking about, the hybrid conference. We put a timer there. We put time of day slides so everybody could see their notes. Everybody could see exactly how much time they had left. So that when the session hit 13:59, we knew we had to wrap up, right?
Yep.
Because speakers never go over time.
Never.
So, yeah, never ever. So yeah, I wrote Multiview for NDI mostly because I was getting tired of controlling all my PTZ cameras using multiple studio monitor instances. And it was one of those instances of my desire to program outweighed my desire to search on Google for a multi-view. If I'm brutally
and then
honest.
One of the things I want to add too is that as all great tinkerers do, you solve the multi-view problem and you're like, what else can I do with this tool? So the multi-viewer today it resembles, but it's a lot more than the original multi-viewer you put out there. So talk about some of those other things you added to it besides basic multi-viewing over time. Because I think it's fascinating because one of the things I think people have to realize in a software-based world, which is where NDI is going, you don't have to settle for what you have. You can always keep improving and tweaking. So you can solve a problem today. Doesn't mean you can't use that same tool to solve future problems by expanding it. So talk about some of the things you added to it, and then let's jump right into the demo.
Well, one of the biggest things we added that made life easy for our team was pass-through KVM. So think about studio monitor and screen capture, right? You can, with screen capture, you can turn on keyboard, video mouse, KVM control, right? So you can then control that computer using studio monitor. So a lot of times for our productions, we need a producer who's got hands on all the different computers at the same time, but we don't want to have 4 or 5 studio monitor instances open. We want to give that person a control surface that they can access any of the computers at any time. Pass through KVM on Multiview, they're able to put those 4 computers, 5 computers, however many computers they need to up on screen, exactly this. We had some computers in the lower right corner there, and we had some of our cameras in the upper section as well. So what we're able to do is say, okay, you can pass your mouse and keyboard over any of these viewports and go and control that computer. So there's no clicking around, there's no kind of futzing around, am I into the right machine using studio monitor? It's right there on the control surface.
So I think what's important,
that's also
yeah, I was going to say, what I think is important on that is like some people have a TriCaster, it's an all-in-one solution, but a lot of other people, their solution is they're running OBS or vMix on multiple computers, adding what they need. So what a clever solution, because you can still have one spot to orchestrate so much of that. That's one of those big terms that, the tier 1, television networks use and stuff like that. But that orchestration level, I think you really started hitting on something that I know from my discussions with other people during this week. That's something that's really being on the NDI development cycle for 2026. So we're going to see a lot more things where you have NDI tools to help you work with other NDI tools and bring it all together. So enough talking about this. You've got a demo you can do, right?
We've actually been experiencing that demo as we speak.
How do you like that? That's so cool.
So today, actually just a few hours ago, I put kind of the finishing touches. We found one bug just before we went to air, so I'm going to avoid that part of the demo.
Good,
but
good call.
Yeah. But this, what you're seeing right now, my image, this is actually coming through my latest tool, which is Virtual PTZ for NDI.
Oh,
Let me set the scene for you. Let me set the scene for you. You've got a source, you've got somebody that's on Teams. In fact, this is the exact scenario I wrote this for. You're bringing in participants from Microsoft Teams via NDI into your TriCaster, into vMix, into wherever, right? But they're not, and you want to put them into you've got slides on the right-hand side of the screen, and you've got the presenter in a small box, you know, like a 1 or a 2 box layout, right?
Yep.
And they're not quite centered, but we're in the middle of the presentation, so we don't want to ask them to shift over, right? So with virtual PTZ, what we can do instead is control the zoom and pan and tilt digitally. So this camera I'm using, Bird Dog camera,
has not moved.
It's outputting 4K, and I'm transmitting 1080p 60. In fact, I got virtual PTZ transmitting 1080p 60, so I'm using a Bird Dog controller right now to pan, tilt, and zoom into the image. In fact, let me pull up the demo here. I'll bring up Multiview for NDI, or not Multiview, but virtual PTZ for NDI. Let's hit the Go Demo button and see if that brings up my overlay.
There we go.
Perfect, there it is. So let me explain what's going on. I'm actually mixing this all together using vMix and sending this out to Zoom. But my image right now, this is actually being controlled using virtual PTZ. In fact, if I turn preview area on, you'll actually notice the whole image kind of goes dark a bit, and you'll see that there's the part where I've cropped everything out is in full intensity, fully opaque. And then there's some transparency. You can see some transparency. Yep. We're actually taking advantage of the alpha transparency in NDI to kind of do this digital cropping. So if I hide the preview area, so these transitions that you're seeing, if I recall my preset 1 and go home on the camera, that's actually triggering virtual PTZ to do that. That's not vMix. This is virtual PTZ. And if I call preset 3, I can zoom in. If I call preset 2, and I can go back to this digital pan, tilt, and crop. Yeah. So this is all just in virtual PTZ, remember?
Right.
And we've also included a little bit of, I've been making a bit of noise about another utility I'm working on called Relay. I pulled a bit of the code from there just to smooth out this feed a little bit, so it's a well-clocked feed, so vMix is pretty happy. Inside of this web UI, I'll just hide my overlay for a second using the handy-dandy Stream Deck. Shout out El Gato. Stream Decks are awesome. They're critical in our workflow.
And we're going to be selling them now, so we love that.
Beautiful. Gotta love it. I've got, how many do we have at this point? I think I've got 4 plus a plus, and everybody else on my team's got at least 4. We love them. So virtual PTZ, we've got a couple different config settings. You can adjust the crop in pixels, or you can actually, I'm going to set this to control mode crop and adjust the right, and I will actually bring up my overlay again now. So I'm going to say control mode crop, control right, and now I'm actually going to use the PTZ joystick on the hardware device to adjust my crop level.
Nice.
So notice how that's increasing and decreasing. So, and again, this is just an off the shelf. I just took this Bird Dog controller, aimed it at virtual PTZ, and it just works. And again, this isn't Bird Dog's newest controller, but this shows you that, hey, if you've got existing hardware with NDI, as long as they can all talk to each other, your stuff's probably going to work.
Could I also set those presets to just be in my Stream Deck?
Yeah, you could. So this is the way that we're recalling and setting the presets. I can use Studio Monitor. I can use my hardware controller. I can also go into the Stream Deck and recall those presets. In fact, I'm going to try and hide myself for a second. We'll see if I can get to my buttons live. We'll go localhost 8001. All right, perfect. We're using Companion. And the queues that I'm running, actually, I'm just doing basic HTTP GET requests to recall preset. In fact, I could grab, you know what? I'm just going to grab this URL here. I'm going to recall preset camera 1, preset 1. And I'll bring myself back on screen. Let's see here. Did I get the right camera? I might have. Oh, I want preset index 0. There we go. That'll be the home preset. Oh. Yeah, so you can use HTTP GET request to do that as well.
That's incredible. I love this, especially because I think that you have Zoom and Teams, which are really great, but they're not fun to watch if you have, let's say, 4 people max. When it gets to be 6, 9, 12, it gets ridiculous. But I think with your virtual PTZ, Teams, and an instance of OBS and virtual camera, I could actually produce my Teams call from a Stream Deck, where if it was me and you talking, and then I want to hit a button to bring in, the whole team, I hit a button and now it goes to the Brady Bunch look. And now all of a sudden, one of the guys
Exactly.
is asking a question, I just go to him on a button. I think if we could produce Teams calls in that way, you might get people wanting to use the tool again, because back in 2023, I coined the word, Teams fatigue. And I'm not saying I invented it or Zoom fatigue, but it became a thing. And I think right now when we have people doing remote work, and I'm talking about real remote work, not just a whole little conference where you have to deal with people every day. I think if the person running the meeting had the ability to have a little bit of software running and a Stream Deck, you could really make those calls so much more enjoyable. And now when you're getting the content, one of the things we're working on is we're going to do a whole show with Elgato where everything's going to be pre-programmed to a Stream Deck, and we're going to have a camera on the guys doing nothing, watching me, and I'm actually going to run the show from the Stream Deck. And I definitely, I mean, I don't want to plug Stream Deck, I want to more plug software, but your PTZ, virtual PTZ is wonderful. And it's been something that, is in a TriCaster. It's a feature I love, especially, the cropping of the 4K image into multiple shots. I've had guys use one 4K camera like in a bar, and all of a sudden they can produce, a band. They've got the wide look, they've got just the drummer, they've got the singer, and all that stuff. So it's really cool. And we were talking about when we were doing our just setup show to get these going, I think it'd be really cool if you had a vertical crop as one of the options also when you want to take stuff to social media. So great job with that. What other tools are you working on, buddy?
So we've got, of course, there's Multiview for NDI, working on that lots. That just got native HX output, so really happy about that. And it works on the Mac again, so yay, Apple let us publish things. There's router for NDI. We've got, I'm just trying to think of all the tools. We've got, virtual
while
PTZ,
you're thinking, I want to let folks,
that's going to be released.
We put up the Tractus, your email, but we put up a little QR code so people can just sit on that QR code and go right to your website and check out your tools and download whatever tools they want to check out. So I just want to let everyone know that's what that was.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, we've also got, so there's also Full View, which takes all your HDMI outputs or graphics outputs on a Windows machine, turns those into NDI receivers that are Discovery enabled. We could do a whole show on NDI Discovery. That is the most underrated feature of NDI. And talking about orchestration, that's going to be a huge part. We use Discovery everywhere now.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And I think one of the big opportunities for you, if you want to tinker a little bit, is NDI having audio now really opens up some cool features to like an NDI audio mixer or getting NDI to follow cameras and stuff like that. I think there's a world of possibility for the tinkerers and programmers and guys who are smarter than me to play with that, because I think audio has been one of the biggest, I don't want to say missing, because we always had audio and the audio was great, it was in sync, but audio tools via NDI was something that was missing. I think you're going to see orchestration and audio tools really being what 2026, when we do NDI 2026 next year, I think we're going to talk about the orchestration tools and all the audio tools that came out that made, NDI that much better in 2025, 26.
I'm looking forward to the first NDI native microphone, wireless microphone set, because
nice.
I'll let you in on another little secret. This microphone that I'm using, NDI.
Really?
Yes,
nice.
We're using NDI free audio. I built a little Raspberry Pi. I've got a guide all about how to do this. I built a little Raspberry Pi. This is a Hollyland M2S, I believe, just a little, just a little kit. The receiver is just a USB-C receiver. It's plugged into the Raspberry Pi. I'm using NDI free audio to turn that into an audio source that I put on my network. And it just runs. And whenever I want to produce, I just throw on the microphone and we're good to go.
Super cool. I know the guys at Rode would be interested in that opportunity too. We use the Rode mics here, just good mics. But
yes,
Elias, it was great having you on the show. I think what? Oh, we got a question.
Oh.
So somebody asked, what NDI decoders did you use for your video walls in that case that you were talking about?
Which NDI decoders did we use for video walls or for iMag?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we use a lot of mini PCs. We've got physical hardware converters, and we do use those sometimes, but I actually find that to get the most control over the signal that is going out to the TV, especially for scenarios where you don't have a decimator available, we use mini PCs. And in some cases, we'll use Studio Monitor. That's actually one of the reasons I wrote Full View, was I wanted to just take a mini PC, plug it into power, plug it into Ethernet, plug in the HDMIs, boot it up, and be able to send the signal up to the TV.
When
So a
you
lot
say
of
mini
times we are just
PCs, you
using
mean
mini
like
PCs.
you mean like one of those little Nook computers, right? The little box computers. Usually they have Wi-Fi in them and all that good stuff. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah, just a little Nook.
You're
Exactly.
programming Raspberry Pis too, I heard you mention.
Yeah, Raspberry Pis, I find you can get those to do NDI output. Just the Raspberry Pi just tends to be a bit underpowered for it.
Yeah.
Alternative options like the Orange Pi 5 and anything that's got, you know, like at least 6 to 8 cores on ARM tends to work a lot better. Apple, actually, the M series Macs are fantastic for NDI. The horsepower that those machines have is
So now
incredible.
I agree. I love those from a point of view of they've gotten a next level horsepower that doesn't get enough attention to me. But NDI was always something that Macs struggled with. You've figured out, you've cracked that code a little bit for your stuff?
I think just it seems like there's been a lot of work put into making NDI really try and fly on ARM, which is essentially what the core of
Yep.
the new architecture for Apple Silicon is, right? And so it really shows with the latest Mac updates. I find I don't have performance figures in front of me, but I've heard anecdotally from some of our users that are using Multiview on Mac that they're getting, you know, tens of inputs and not struggling at all, like plenty of CPU headroom. Apple did a really good job making that platform. You know,
Super cool. Well,
my
thank
opinions
you.
on Mac OS.
Thank you for that information. You did a great show. I thank you for the live demo. That was fantastic. Loved hearing about all the stuff you're doing. You answered a question for somebody, but whenever I have a guest on, I'd like to say, you know, thank you for being on the segment. The floor is yours. You know, talk about your favorite thing, whatever, this show, your show, what you're working on. Take us away. The floor is yours.
I just want to say that if you're, I don't know how many software folks are out there that are going to be watching this, but I would say if you're a manufacturer and you've got some software and you think that it would be beneficial to you to get your signals into the NDI world, download the SDK, give it a try, see how easy it is to integrate it into your products. A competent programmer can get a really cool NDI demo going within a day. The SDK is super easy to use, and the community and the software and the hardware, we are a gigantic ecosystem, right? We all need each other, and we need more software out there as well to show, you know, really what NDI is capable of. I think we're scratching the surface. NDI is maturing. It's beautiful to see. So I'd say if you've got a bit of a software itch that you want to scratch and get your signals into the NDI world, download the SDK, give it a try. And if not, you know, just start playing with the hardware, start playing with the software, see what you can do. You'd be surprised what kind of flexibility you get with an AV over IP and NDI-based workflow. So I'll leave it there. And of course, shameless plug for Multiview for NDI.
Cool. And once again, I'll bring back the tools. If we can show that page, you could look at it. It's tractusevents.com/tools. You can go to the QR code to get that information.